After writing 2 transformational books myself and supporting many other beings to do the same, I've become enthralled by the deep and mysterious magic that's activated when we choose to say yes to ourselves and commit to the book writing journey. Of course, we want to inspire change and new perspectives in our readers, but the transformation that happens as an author, both throughout the writing process and by actually releasing your book into the world, is surprisingly potent. I know I've been blindsided in the most disruptive and delicious ways by some of the changes my books have brought into my life. Writing a book is like casting a spell. Although we can never be completely sure what's going to be unleashed during the process, we choose to do it anyway. This Unbound one is a heroic journey. Each book has the potential to be a magical portal, a doorway to a new world, both for you and your reader. Each book has a very specific medicine that it's here to share with us. And each book gives us the opportunity to alchemize the magnificent imperfection of our experience into gold. The truth is that anyone can write a book. We could all get a few thousand words down and put them together. But what fascinates me is what happens when we allow the book writing process to go deeper. When we say, fuck it, get naked and dive way down beneath the surface. Letting go of the shoulds and any need to be acceptable, sensible, or approved of. What fascinates me is what happens when we make ourselves fully available to being transformed by the very act of writing a book. This is Unbound Writing, and this is the process we'll be exploring together here in the Unbound Writers Club. I'm Nicola, author and founder of the Unbound Press, and I help magical beings to write the transformational book they're really here to write at this time. I'm your guide here in the Unbound Writers Club, and the aim of this podcast is to help you to feel supported, encouraged, activated as you embark on your book writing journey. Whether you're a first-time author or have many books out in the world, my hope is that you will find something here to inspire you. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today we've got something a little bit different because I want to share some insights from seeing the amazing Elizabeth Gilbert speak recently. So Liz Gilbert is the author of books including Eat, Pray, Love, which you may have heard of, and Big Magic. Big Magic talks specifically about creativity, and that book pretty much coached me through the whole of the writing process for my first book, Heal Your Inner Good Girl. I didn't have a writing coach at the time. I had an accountability partner, but reading Big Magic just really kept me on track, let me know that I wasn't alone in what was coming up, just taught me so much about the creative process and specifically writing a book. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. So she has always been somebody who's been there since the beginning of my creative journey, my book writing journey. And at the end of last year, I heard that she was not only coming to the UK, but coming to my hometown of Southampton, which kind of blew my mind because no one comes to Southampton. Well, not somebody like Elizabeth Gilbert, to come over from the States. She was only speaking in a few different towns like London, Manchester, big cities, but also Southampton. So, that was just too much of a coincidence. I was like, I have to be there. This is a sign. So got together a group of other amazing Unbound writers. And last week, as I'm recording this, we went to see her speak. And I wanted to share some of the insights with you because there are 4 in particular that really resonated and I feel that you will find helpful as on your own book writing journey. So talking a little bit about the wisdom of Elizabeth Gilbert today. The first one was one of the first stories that she told was about way back when she was in New York City, making her way as a writer with a lot of other jobs, other responsibilities, struggling to find the time to write. And she had a mentor, an older woman who was an artist and successful. And one night they were at a party and Liz asked her, was talking about her struggle with finding the time to write. Now, this is something that comes up over and over again in the containers that I hold space for, in the Unbound Writers Club membership, in Birth Your Transformational Book. Like, whenever someone is coming into the Unbound writing world, I can pretty much guarantee, like, when you're writing a book, like, that struggle with finding time and focusing on your book is going to come up. So she was talking about this to her mentor, and her mentor asked her this question, which is quite a tough question. It's quite the challenge. She said, "What are you willing to give up to have the life you keep pretending you want?" Whew. Like, it's that word pretending, isn't it? So I guess we could reword that question specifically around writing a book. Like, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to do differently to write the book you keep pretending you want to write, or to have the life as a transformational author you keep pretending you want? Like, it's hard to hear those words, isn't it? And I know my initial response, I would probably go into defense mode and be like, but I'm not pretending, like, I am doing it. And, as Elizabeth Gilbert was talking about this story, that was her initial response as well. And it's like, but if it's not happening, like, there's some kind of mismatch here, isn't there? Because we do make time for the things that are important to us. We do focus on the things that are really important to us. We do prioritize the things in our life that are genuinely important to us. And I'm not saying at all that if you're struggling to find the time to write, that you don't have a whole ton of other responsibilities and obligations, that your life is incredibly full. And also, in the world that we're living in, our attention, like the way we use our attention, the way our attention works, is so different to what it was probably even just 5 years ago, because we are continually exposed to, bombarded with all of this information and content in different ways. The way our brains work has changed because we are continually online consuming content, scrolling. It can feel difficult, really, really challenging to actually sit down and focus on something. And of course, many of us are anything but neurotypical. So our brains work in a different way. There are lots of layers here. There are lots of things in the mix. And still, if your book is important to you, what is it going to take for you to show up for it? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to give up? There will be something for each of us. I have to ask myself this question. And also, that pretending piece. What are you willing to do to write the book you keep pretending you want to write? Because I know, there are people in my world who have been wanting to write a book for years, maybe... this is the case for me. Since I was a little girl, I'd always wanted to write books. And it took me until I was in my early 40s to actually do that. And I know for me, a big part of that was not feeling I was good enough, not feeling I could do it, not feeling that anyone would be interested in what I had to write about. So there's a belief and there's an identity piece here. So it's about stepping into the identity of the writer, the author you are, the transformational author you're here to be. And that question can help us to step into that more fully. That's certainly what happened with Elizabeth Gilbert when that woman challenged her with that question. So it's stepping into like who you are. You are a writer. If you're listening to this, you're a writer, you're an author. Even if you haven't completed a book yet, you wouldn't be listening to this if that wasn't part of your identity. So what are you willing to give up in order to really step into that? And it may be like activities, things that you do, things that fill up your life. Or it could be old stories about like who you are, old limiting stories and beliefs. So that's the first piece. I mean, I could do a whole episode on that, couldn't I? The second piece was around discipline. I talk about divine discipline because I know like combining it with the word divine and the energy of the divine helps, because I know many of us can struggle or resist the idea of discipline. It feels like it's something being imposed on us. And I've heard Liz Gilbert talk about discipline in the past and like, you know, showing up for your writing. I remember back again when I was writing Heal You're in a Good Girl, I'd heard her speaking about like everyone can find 30 minutes a day to write. And that's what she had done. Like with one of her books, she was going through a very, very busy time, but she'd shown up every day just for 30 minutes at least to write. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. So it was a form of discipline. And actually, and like I said, I combine it or have learned to combine it with the energy of the divine. We were talking about this in the Unbound Writers Club membership recently. And some people like prefer the word of devotion, like dedication, whatever floats your boat. But the point is, when I heard Liz speak recently, she said that what is more important than discipline, like everybody talks about discipline when it comes to writing, creativity, creating something that we want to in the world, when we want to create something new in the world, like discipline is important. That's kind of the message that is out there. But she said, what's more important than discipline is mercy. Like we have to be compassionate with ourselves. And again, this definitely ties in with the Unbound writing approach, because it's that balance between like the more masculine energy of discipline, or dare I say it, consistency, but also having that sense of mercy, of compassion for ourselves, recognizing that we are cyclical beings and we get to ebb and flow with our process. So rather than beating yourself up because you told yourself you were going to write like every day this week, or that like this was the week, this was the month when you were really going to make progress with your book and it hasn't happened, it's like, it's okay. Like you get to come back to it. Where can you show yourself some mercy? And this is a continual process. I was speaking to one of my friends who's also a client recently. We were out walking and, you know, she was saying how really this is a process. The book writing journey is one of cultivating compassion for ourselves. And it is. It is. It's one of cultivating self-trust. And that goes hand in hand with compassion. Because when you trust yourself and you trust your own experience, that you can be compassionate. It's when you don't trust yourself that you start to get all judgy and beat yourself up and tell yourself there's something wrong with you. There isn't. There isn't. Like you're a human being. You get to ebb and flow. You get to drift away from your process and you'll come back to it. So mercy over discipline. That's the other message that I really, really took away, the second message. The third key piece for me was somebody asked the question, like, what do you do or how do you deal with it when, like, what is in your head, like the idea that you have, like it feels really brilliant, really true, and then you go to write it on the page and it just feels clunky. Like it's just not the same. Like your writing just doesn't feel good enough. And again, this is like a continual challenge for us as creative beings, as unbound writers, as transformational authors. And Liz said, she talked about earlier on in her own kind of writing career, when she was writing her first novel, she'd written a lot of short stories, but she'd never written a novel. And she wasn't really sure what to write about. So someone else suggested an idea to her and she was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go with that. And she said, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't awful, but, relative to her later writing, yeah, it did feel pretty awful. Didn't do well. And this is the thing, like the first time we're doing something, it's going to feel clunky. She was talking about like the way we get to improve, the way we get to be truer in what we can express on the page is through actually doing it, showing up and writing. And actually, this was mirrored in a Birth Your Transformational book coaching call this week, actually, when someone said, like, I'd rather write a mediocre book and it be out in the world than be trying to write like the best book and it never getting out there because it never feels good enough. Like, we have to let it feel clunky. We have to move through. The only way to move through that is actually writing it, completing it, putting it out there onto the next thing. Not like a production line, but it's the only way we close the gap and get closer to like that brilliance that is there. When you just, something lands and it's like, like I just feel that the truth in that, the genius in it. And then we try and express it and it's like, oh, no. But the only way we can have the possibility of capturing that is through the doing, the writing, and sharing it, like allowing what we are expressing to be witnessed. So that was the third piece. Like, don't keep waiting for it to feel perfect. Like, allow it to feel messy, not quite there. And the fourth piece, which is super, super powerful and kind of ties in with what I was talking about with the cyclical energy, the way we get to ebb and flow and how we can judge ourselves around that. She was talking about her relationship with her guides. When she checks in and asks a question like, what do I need to do? And she was talking about a specific experience which wasn't related to creativity, but she said this also shows up in her writing. So often when she checks in with her guides, it's like, well, what's next? What do I need to do? And they will say, you will be informed when there is something for you to do. Until then, you get to wait. You will be notified. I think that was where you will be notified when there's something for you to do. So often in our writing process, in our creative process, again, we are beating ourselves up because it's like, when nothing's happening, nothing's coming through. So this, I'm obviously not meant to do this. I'm obviously doing it wrong. I'm obviously wrong. And it's like, no, it's just not the time. It's not the time. Something is percolating. You will be notified when there is something for you to do. You will be notified when your next step is. We are so conditioned to be in the doing, like doing all the time, trying to fix it, trying to find the solution, trying to find the way all the time, continually. If we're not doing, then there's something wrong. And that is it's not how life works. It's not how the creative process works. There can be often long periods of time when it looks like nothing is happening, like when you're waiting for the next idea to drop in, when you're waiting for that clarity to land. And there is always something happening under the surface, but we don't recognize it. So we try and force it. We try and force ourselves. What if we truly believed, like, when there's something to do, I will know and I will follow that and I will do for as long as I need to do. And then there will be a pause again. What if we truly trusted that? But in my experience, that is the way it is. That is so true. There can be long periods of time when there's just nothing. But I'm still here trying to be a busy bee, trying to make it happen. And then all of a sudden, and it's just a distraction. And then all of a sudden, like, something lands and it's like, this is the thing. Like, this is the next idea for a book, or this is the next part of the book that I'm writing. This is what it wants to be. And I spent all that time buzzing around trying to make it happen. And it was coming all along. So what if we trusted? What if you trusted? You will be notified when when it's the next step, when it's the next thing to do. When the next piece lands, you'll know it because we all know those moments. We all know that feeling. It's like, that's it. I've been trying to figure it out, and actually it was coming all along. So those are the 4 pieces that really stood out for me in terms of book writing, which I wanted to share with you. The wisdom of Elizabeth Gilbert, and kind of what that sparked off for me personally, and in terms of, the groups of writers that I hold space for. And also, I guess the last piece is how amazing to see a woman standing on stage, no frills, no bells and whistles, telling her story, telling stories, sharing her wisdom in this way. Like, the energy in that room was unbelievable. It was so potent. Like, everyone I was with, we had tears, we had laughter. Like, it shifted something for all of us. And that is the power of someone sharing their story, sharing their stories. So remember that when it comes to your book, your books, like your story, your stories are just as important, powerful, inspirational as Elizabeth Gilbert. She has got to a place where, she's a multi-best-selling author. You don't have to be a multi-best-selling author and speaker in order for your story to have immense value. There is someone or someone's, a lot of people out there that your story will make all the difference to. So please know that. Remember that. I would love to hear what resonated, what landed in particular with you from what I've just shared, what's kind of what it sparked off. So as ever, the best place to find me is Instagram. I'm at Nicola Humbert over there. Come find me. Let me know. I hope you've enjoyed that episode, and I will be back with you again soon in the Unbound Writers Club. What do you do when you want to write a book, but the usual approaches are leaving you feeling restricted, pressurized, not at all enough, and pretty dry, to be honest? You find another way, of course. And if you are listening to this, my free unconventional book writing guide is going to be perfect for you. It's designed especially for soul-led coaches, healers, and mentors who want to write a transformational book without spending hours on end chained to a desk. In it, I'm giving you my unique spin on the top 10 questions I hear from would-be authors, and it's going to help you liberate the way you write forever. Download your free copy of the guide now over at nicolahumbert.com/10, the number 10, 10 hyphen questions.